The very first line of this book is arguably the most famous opening in all of literature. All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. And right there, with that single profound statement, Leo Tolstoy sets the stage for one of the most sprawling, heartbreaking, and human stories ever written. I'm talking, of course, about Anna Karenina. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the world of 19th century Imperial Russia, exploring why this book became a classic and how it dissects the eternal conflict between passion, duty, and the crushing weight of society. It's a huge book, but at its heart, it's really two parallel stories about searching for what's real in a world obsessed with appearances. Our story begins not with Anna, but with her charming, perpetually indebted, and deeply unfaithful brother Stiva Oblonsky in Moscow. Stiva's wife, the long-suffering Dolly, has just found out about yet another affair, and their marriage is in total turmoil. Enter Stiva's sister, the beautiful, magnetic Anna Karenina, arriving from St. Petersburg. She's married to Alexei Karenin, a high-ranking, stiff, and thoroughly conventional government official, a man who, in my opinion, treats their marriage like a business contract rather than a partnership. Anna comes to Moscow as the peacemaker, and she actually succeeds in reconciling Stiva and Dolly. She has this radiant, effortless charisma that seems to mend everything it touches. But right when she arrives at the train station, she meets Count Alexei Vronsky. Vronsky is a dashing, wealthy cavalry officer, the kind of man who lights up a room just by walking into it. He's in Moscow to pursue Dolly's young sister, Kitty Sherbatskaya. And here's where the classic dramatic irony kicks in. Kitty, bless her heart, is head over heels for Vronsky and rejects a proposal from the other main man in the novel, Konstantin Levin, thinking Vronsky is about to propose. But the moment Vronsky sees Anna, something electric happens. It's an instant, undeniable connection. A spark in the snow, literally, as their first meeting is marked by a tragic accident on the railway line, a haunting omen for what's to come. I think what struck me most about this initial encounter is how completely Anna and Vronsky surrender to the moment. They have this huge, glittering ball scene where their mutual attraction is so intense, it's like the air around them is shimmering. Poor Kitty watches, devastated, realizing Vronsky only has eyes for Anna. The contrast is sharp. Anna, the married woman, is finding her first taste of true, reckless passion, while Kitty is left heartbroken, suddenly facing a future that's not what she planned. It's a gut punch of a start, showing us immediately that this world runs on devastatingly real, sometimes destructive emotion. Now, let's pivot to the second half of Tolstoy's masterpiece, the story of Konstantin Levin. While Anna's world is all about the high-stakes, glittering, and often hypocritical society of St. Petersburg and Moscow, Levin is a wealthy, introspective landowner who mostly keeps to his country estate. Levin is deeply intellectual but profoundly awkward socially. He's obsessed with questions of meaning, faith, and how to live a good life, not in the abstract but through tangible work on his land and in connection with his people. He represents an idealized, earnest, and philosophical side of the Russian soul that Tolstoy clearly admired. After Kitty rejects his first proposal, Levin is crushed. He retreats to his estate, throwing himself into agricultural work, trying to find solace and purpose in the soil. We get these incredible, vivid descriptions of him mowing grass alongside his peasants, trying to implement modern farming techniques, and wrestling with the enormous, messy reality of being a landlord. His journey is a search for an authentic way to live, a kind of internal struggle for spiritual salvation. Meanwhile, Kitty, recovered from her heartbreak and illness, begins to realize her mistake. She and Levin eventually cross paths again, and their reunion is one of the most genuinely heartwarming passages in the novel. I love how Tolstoy captures the stuttering, almost childish, yet deeply earnest way they finally communicate their feelings using chalk and a tabletop. Their eventual marriage and the early days of their life together contrast sharply with the emotional chaos of Anna and Vronsky. Levin and Kitty's story is about building a life brick by brick, through forgiveness, compromise, and the hard, rewarding work of a shared existence. It's a beautiful counterpoint, showing that there's more than one path to happiness, and that true fulfillment often comes from embracing the ordinary. Back in St. Petersburg, Anna and Vronsky's affair explodes. Anna returns to her husband, Karenin, but she can no longer hide her feelings or control her actions. She is a woman consumed by passion, and it's both magnificent and terrifying to witness. Karenin, for his part, is less a raging husband and more a deeply wounded man who cares desperately about appearances. He sees the affair as a social problem, an official embarrassment, rather than a personal tragedy. He insists on maintaining the facade of their marriage for the sake of his career and their son, Seryoza, which is devastating for Anna. The famous scene at the horse races perfectly encapsulates their breaking point. Vronsky is riding in a steeplechase when his horse Frou-Frou takes a terrible fall. Anna, watching in the crowd, lets out a gasp of raw, public anguish, completely forgetting herself and the pretense of her marriage. At that moment, Karenin realizes the truth is undeniable. Anna confesses, and Karenin is left in a truly impossible position for a man of his rigid nature. He tells her he will not grant a divorce, effectively trapping her, condemning her to an external life of propriety and an internal life of torment. The pressure mounts. When Anna gives birth to Vronsky's daughter and nearly dies, Karenin undergoes a sudden, radical transformation. He forgives Anna and Vronsky. This act of Christian charity, this astonishing display of magnanimity, should be Anna's salvation. But instead it paralyzes her. Karenin's forgiveness feels less like love and more like a moral obligation, or even a subtle form of spiritual revenge. It's a moment of profound psychological insight by Tolstoy. Anna cannot accept salvation through passive kindness. She needs to feel the full, unrestrained passion that is the only language she now understands. Anna chooses Vronsky. She leaves her husband and, most heartbreakingly, her beloved son Seryoza, to live openly with Vronsky. They travel to Italy, a brief, idyllic escape where they attempt to start a new life, a new society built just for two. But here is the tragedy. You cannot build a world just for two in 19th century Russia, especially not if you are a woman. When Anna and Vronsky return to Russia, the difference in how society treats them is sickeningly clear. Vronsky, as a man, is essentially forgiven and welcomed back into his social circles. A little scandal only makes him more interesting. Anna, however, is completely ostracized. The society she once charmed now refuses to acknowledge her existence. She is no longer Anna Karenina, she is the fallen woman. This societal rejection creates a terrifying isolation. Cut off from her friends, her former life, and her son, Anna's entire world shrinks down to Vronsky. And when a person's entire emotional life depends on one other person, that relationship is almost certainly doomed. Vronsky is still a man of the world. He has his duties, his club, his friends. Anna, trapped in their house, begins a slow, agonizing descent into paranoia and jealousy. She needs constant assurance of his love, and every minute he spends away from her is twisted in her mind into proof of his infidelity or indifference. She can't stand being alone, and she can't stand being with him, constantly questioning his sincerity. She realizes she has exchanged her stifling but secure gilded cage of marriage for a new, smaller, and equally suffocating cage of obsessive love. It's in these later parts of the book that Tolstoy's genius for psychological realism shines. We watch Anna's mind unravel, seeing the world through her increasingly distorted, feverish perspective. She feels like she made the ultimate sacrifice, giving up her son, her position, for Vronsky's love, and now she believes he is reneging on his side of the bargain. She feels the ultimate injustice, the double standard of her society. While Anna's world is contracting, Levin's is expanding. The parallel story of Levin and Kitty is brought to a beautiful fruition. They face their own, very real marital challenges, jealousy, misunderstanding, the pain of childbirth. But they meet them with a spirit of shared commitment and growth. Levin is still searching, still wrestling with the big questions of life. He continues to toil on his farm, but his search for meaning culminates not in a grand philosophical revelation, but in a simple, profound conversation with a peasant. This talk sparks a realization that the good life is not about finding an abstract, universal truth, but about living for God and goodness in the everyday acts of love, family, and work. His path is one of slow, steady construction. Anna's is one of dazzling, rapid destruction. Anna, in her final moments of despair, sees no way out of her psychological prison. She is convinced Vronsky no longer loves her, and that she is utterly, completely alone. She feels all the passion that defined her life has turned into an agonizing, isolating acid. Tolstoy, by interweaving these two narratives, offers no easy answers, but he does offer a profound commentary on the nature of happiness, love, and morality. Is happiness found in the explosive, singular pursuit of passion, or in the patient, mutual building of a life? Anna Karenina suggests a definite preference for the latter, but it never lets us forget the seductive, tragic power of the former. What struck me most about this book was how contemporary the conflicts feel. It's a 19th century Russian novel, yet it's the most vivid, modern portrayal of an affair, of a woman's isolation, of a man's quest for meaning, and of the fundamental unfairness of social judgment. We don't get a neat, Hollywood ending. We get reality, tragic and beautiful in its complexity. It is a masterpiece because it doesn't judge its characters. It merely presents them, full of their radiant flaws and heartbreaking humanity. It tells us that while all happy families are alike, the journey to that happiness is intensely personal, often messy, and utterly unique. If you're ready to dive into a world that is as intoxicatingly romantic as it is deeply philosophical, you need to read this book. It will stay with you long after the final page.